In early August 2023, a peculiar story came out of the quiet country town of Leongatha, about 2 hours southeast of Melbourne, Australia. 5 family members gathered for a homemade beef Wellington lunch, but within days, 3 of them were dead. The cook, Erin Patterson, was the only one to walk away unharmed, and she immediately fell under suspicion. What followed was one of the most captivating and talked about criminal cases Australia has ever seen. The details that came out of the eventual murder trial were frankly wild. It involved death cap mushrooms, trashed food dehydrator, group chat gossip, a fake cancer story, and a roadside bathroom emergency. Erin Patterson's case, dubbed the Mushroom Murders, took over national headlines and even overshadowed a federal election. It was a true water cooler topic because there was just so much fodder to pick apart. If courtroom streaming was allowed in Australia, I'm positive productivity levels would have plummeted for the 10 weeks of the trial. Now that the dust has settled and the verdict has been delivered, we've pulled together all the evidence and key moments to lay out the full story. Who Erin Patterson is, who the victims were, what really happened, and the question we're all still asking, why? Erin Patterson was by most accounts an ordinary mum from small town Australia. Born Erin Scudder, she grew up in Melbourne's middle-class southeastern suburbs with a family of high achievers. Her mother was a respected university lecturer and an expert in children's literature. Her father held director positions in major Australian companies. Her sister became a scientist. Erin's own path, though, was less straightforward. Many of Erin's former colleagues described her as intelligent, but had a tendency to be a bit solitary and strange. She had a pattern of floating between careers without fully committing to any. She got her business degree, but then did a part of a veterinary science course as well as legal courses. She passed the notoriously difficult air traffic controller test, got into the training program, but only stayed in the role for 3 years. There she was nicknamed Crazy Erin and Scudder the Nutter, as she could often be hostile to her co-workers, and once played a prank, pretending to be another co-worker calling in sick so she could pick up more shifts. After that, she worked in animal management for the RSPCA based in the Monash City Council building in Melbourne. That's where she met her future husband Simon Patterson in 2004. Simon was working as a civil engineer and was drawn to Erin's intelligence and wit. They started dating in July 2005, bonding over their shared love of the outdoors and regularly went on camping trips together. Erin had been a staunch atheist her whole life, but eventually converted to Christianity through Simon's church community after attending Bible study and services at his hometown of Corumburra. Erin and Simon got married in 2007. Erin's parents weren't at the wedding. They were reportedly on holiday in Russia. Soon after the wedding, Erin received a substantial inheritance of $2 million from her paternal grandmother, which would be paid out over 8 years. With that financial cushion, both Erin and Simon quit their jobs and began traveling around Australia. They bought a house mortgage-free in Western Australia, and Erin opened a second-hand bookstore in the small town of Pemberton. Before Erin Patterson, there was Kelly Lane, another infamous Australian murder case that had the nation rattled. There's a really well-made 3-part documentary series about it on Australian Netflix. But when I recommended it to a friend from Canada, I found out that it wasn't available anywhere else in the world. But with this video's sponsor, Private Internet Access, you can change your location to Australia or any other country and access a whole trove of docos, TV shows, movies, sporting events, and other content from around the world that you normally wouldn't be able to. Private Internet Access is a VPN that hides your IP address and encrypts your internet connection. So not only can you get around region restrictions, but you can also keep your digital life and data safe from your internet service provider, network admins, government censors, and anyone else looking to exploit your private information. Private Internet Access has over 30 million downloads and is the world's most transparent VPN. Their no-logs policy means they don't track you and don't store your data. It works with all the main streaming services, plus it's available on all major platforms: Windows, Mac, Android, iOS, and Linux. And one subscription lets you protect an unlimited number of devices at the same time. Signing up is risk-free. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee and 24/7 customer support. So scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the description. piavpn.com/amglimpse to grab an 83% discount on Private Internet Access. That's just $2.03 a month. Plus, you get the next extra 4 months completely free. Thanks Private Internet Access for sponsoring this video. Now, back to the story. Their first child was born in 2009. It was a traumatic birth. The baby's heartbeat was lost, requiring an emergency C-section to save his life. Simon's parents, Don and Gail, travelled to Perth from Victoria to support them. In 2011, Erin's father passed away from cancer, Her mother died in 2019, also of cancer. She and her sister inherited a small fortune, including a beach house. Financially, Erin was set, and she'd go on to expand her property portfolio over the years. Eventually, the family settled down in Simon's hometown of Coverups, a quiet rural town 120 kilometers southeast of Melbourne, with a population of 3,600. They bought a house not too far from Simon's parents. Their daughter was born in 2014, and Erin became a full-time stay-at-home mum. The outsiders looking in on the Pattersons. They look like a picture-perfect, wholesome, close-knit family. Simon's parents, Don and Gail, had been married for 50 years. Don was a retired high school teacher who loved doing backyard science experiments with his grandson. Gail worked as a school office assistant and volunteered regularly in the community. The children were close with their loving grandparents and often went to Don and Gail's for sleepovers. Erin developed close relationships with their in-laws and members of Simon's extended family, and even loaned two of his siblings $400,000 each to help buy homes interest-free but indexed to inflation. She took over running the local community newsletter The Borough Flyer from Don and Gail, and also volunteered with the Coverups Baptist Church, helping livestream services during COVID lockdowns. It was through church that she became acquainted with Ian and Heather Wilkinson. Heather was Gail's sister, and her husband Ian was the pastor and leader of the Coverups Baptist Church since 1999. Heather had also been an educator and continued to tutor new migrants in English, while Ian worked as a handyman at the local nursing home. Ian and Heather were a warm, welcoming, and popular couple in the community, but never became particularly close friends with Erin. They had just an amicable relationship. But Erin and Simon's relationship had been slowly unraveling since the birth of their first child. They went through several short-term breakups, and in 2015, they officially separated but did not get divorced, preferring to reach a financial and co-parenting agreement without lawyers. They remained on good terms, stayed in regular contact, and even took family holidays together. Erin even continued to put Simon's name on the titles of properties she bought. In 2019, 4 years after the separation, Erin and Simon jointly bought land in the nearby town of Leongatha. Erin had sketched the design for what she had called her forever house in Microsoft Paint. She still saw a possible future with Simon, and felt that adding his name to the property was her way of showing it. Despite the separation, Erin maintained a close, friendly relationship with Simon's parents, Don and Gail. The Pattersons were devout Christians who wanted Simon and Erin's marriage to work out, but they weren't keen on mediating their disputes. Text messages between Erin and her in-laws showed no sign of animosity. In May 2022, Erin and Gail exchanged Mother's Day greetings. Happy Mother's Day, Erin. May God bless you. Love, Don and Gail. Thanks, Gail. Happy Mother's Day to the best mum-in-law anyone could ask for. XXOO. Very kind of you. XO. But by October 2022, things began to sour when Erin thought she was being excluded from Gail's birthday celebrations. Hey, are you coming to Mum's birthday lunch at the Top Pub tomorrow with the kids? I think it's at 12:30. I don't know anything about your mum's birthday tomorrow. Glad I asked. Mum turns 70 tomorrow and is keen to have something to celebrate it on her B-Day. Dad mentioned he thought he'd asked you and you'd said yes. However, I mentioned it to the kids the other day and they didn't seem to have heard of it, so I wondered if Dad was confused. I'm not too sure how your dad could have been confused about what we were talking about. It's pretty obvious in this conversation. Seems that my invite to tomorrow is a bit of an afterthought and not even from your parents, so I might pass thanks, as I'd rather not go somewhere I'm not welcome. Oh come on, that's ridiculous. You really reckon Dad is lying? What I reckon is that everybody forgot to actually invite me to this thing, and I feel very, very hurt about that. And your response is to say that I'm being ridiculous. Shortly after the birthday incident, their relationship took an irrevocable turn for the worse when Simon listed himself as separated on his tax return for the first time. He claimed it was a paperwork error, but Erin was very upset about it and it ended their previously friendly dynamic. She told Simon she would be applying for formal child support. Despite Simon's high-paying job as an engineering consultant and significant assets, his assessed contribution came to just $38 a month. In December 2022, Simon refused to pay for their son's medical bill and refused to cover half of their children's private school fees, as he had been advised by government staff to only pay his allocated monthly payment. Erin made her frustration known in messages to the extended family group chat. Both parents have a duty to financially support the children they made. Simon is hiding behind the communication from the government, but now I've made a child support claim, he doesn't have to pay any bills outside of it. That is an instruction for people who want to be a bare minimum parent because any money or bills paid outside the official child support. When Erin had Simon's child support payments reassessed and increased to $473 a month, Simon cancelled his direct debits for the children's activities and stopped paying for their private health cover. Erin then pulled the kids out of their private school and enrolled them into a different school without telling Simon. By early 2023, her relationship with her husband and his parents became strictly functional. They only discussed logistics and the kids. Before Erin became the subject of a litany of true crime content, she was actually a consumer and fan of it. She engaged in online discussions about well-known cases, listened to a podcast about Jeffrey Epstein, and was an active participant in a 2,000-member Facebook group dedicated to dissecting the case of Australian baby killer Kelly Lane. One member of the group called Erin, quote, a super sleuth. Out of that Facebook group, Erin and a smaller circle of like-minded members splintered off into their own private group chat, where they talked about not just true crime, but also shared about their personal lives. It was in this group chat where Erin spoke candidly about her growing bitterness towards Simon and his parents. Digital forensics officers would later recover messages sent by Erin to the group chat in December 2022. Nobody bloody listens to me. At least I know they're a lost cause. I sent a group message to them all last night saying how Simon's behavior is unconscionable and asking me to withdraw the child support claim is wrong and disadvantages me and his children and how dare he, etc. I'm sick of this shit. I want nothing to do with them. I thought his parents would want him to do the right thing, but it seems their concern about not wanting to feel uncomfortable and not wanting to get involved in their son's personal matters are overriding that, so fuck them. His mum was horrified I had claimed child support. Why isn't she horrified her son is such a deadbeat and that I had no choice but to claim? Simon's messages will just be horrible and gaslighting and abusive and ruin my day, and his parents will be more weasel words. Simon wants to walk away from his responsibilities. If he wants them to go to a private Christian school, he can help pay for it. To her online friends, Erin painted a picture of Simon as a controlling and coercive man who put his deep religious convictions and his church before his own children. During the COVID lockdowns in 2020, Erin developed another interest, wild mushrooms. During this time, us residents of Victoria were only allowed out for an hour a day. Erin spent that time walking through the Currumbara Botanic Gardens and noticed mushrooms popping up everywhere. Photos from one of her devices showed she was regularly foraging for wild mushrooms in mid-2020. On the 28th of May 2022, Erin's computer accessed a post on iNaturalist, popular nature identification website. It had been posted 10 days ago and listed sightings of highly poisonous deathcap mushrooms in a park in Moorabbin, a suburb in Melbourne's southeast about an hour and a half away. A year later, between April to May 2023, more sightings of deathcap mushrooms were posted on iNaturalist. This time, the deadly mushrooms were spotted much closer to home in the towns of Lock and Outram, both less than half an hour drive from Erin's house. On the 28th of April 2023, phone tower records indicated that Erin was in the town of Lock. That same day, she bought a $229 Sunbeam Food Lab dehydrator from Hartley Wells Better Home Living in Leongatha. She began experimenting with drying store-bought mushrooms in it, documenting it and sending photos to her group chat. I'd been hiding powdered mushrooms in everything, mixed it into chocolate brownies yesterday. The kids had no idea. She framed it as a parenting hack, sneaking mushrooms into her kids' food to up their nutrients. A few weeks later, on the 22nd of May 2023, phone tower data showed that Erin was in the town of Outram and stayed in the vicinity for 35 minutes. By July 2023, Erin's relationship with Simon and her in-laws was strained, but she continued to attend church every couple of weeks. It was there that she extended an invitation to her estranged husband, his parents Don and Gail, as well as Gail's sister and brother-in-law, Heather and Ian Wilkinson, to come over for lunch. She said she had some news to share with them regarding her health. Ian Wilkinson, who would end up being the only guest to survive the lunch, later said he was surprised by the invitation. He typically saw Erin only about once a month at church and described their relationship as polite but not especially close. Yet he and his wife accepted Erin's invitation, as did Don and Gail Patterson. In the days leading up to the lunch, purchase records linked to Erin's supermarket rewards card showed she purchased ingredients for beef Wellington, including large quantities of mushrooms. For those unfamiliar, beef Wellington is an elaborate dish that involves wrapping a fillet of steak in a layer of paste made of sautéed minced mushrooms, wrapping that in a layer of pastry, then baking the whole thing. It takes several hours to prepare and is typically served on special occasions. Erin used the beef Wellington recipe from this book, Recipe 10 Eats, Dinner by Nagi Mayahashi. If you're in Australia, you probably recognize it because Nagi is one of the most popular home cooking authors in the country. So much so that even I've got a copy of her book. As you can see, this recipe is very detailed and very specific. There are a lot of components to get right for a successful beef Wellington. The day before the lunch on the 28th of July 2023, Simon told Erin he would not be attending via text message. "I feel too uncomfortable about coming to the lunch with you, Mum, Dad, Heather and Ian tomorrow. But I'm happy to talk about your health and implications of that at another time. If you'd like to discuss on the phone, just let me know." That's really disappointing. I've spent many hours this week preparing for lunch tomorrow, which has been exhausting in light of the issues I'm facing, and spent a small fortune on beef eye fillet to make beef Wellington because I wanted it to be a special meal, as I may not be able to host a lunch like this again for some time. It's important to me that you're all there tomorrow, and that I can have the conversations that I need to have. I hope you'll change your mind. Your parents and Heather and Ian are coming at 12:30. I hope to see you there. But Simon would not turn up. On the morning of Saturday, the 29th of July 2023, Erin dropped her 9-year-old daughter, 14-year-old son, and his friend off at McDonald's. The children grabbed some food, then headed to the local cinema. Her 4 guests, Don and Gail Patterson and Ian and Heather Wilkinson, then arrived in her newly built home in Leongatha, the forever house she had helped design and oversaw the construction of. The guests admired the open-plan kitchen and dining space. Heather was reorganizing her own home and asked if she could see Erin's pantry. Ian recalled that Erin seemed very reluctant to show off her pantry, and he assumed it was because she was embarrassed that it was messy. After a brief tour of the garden, they regrouped in the kitchen where Erin began mashing potatoes. Gail and Heather offered to help serve up the meal, but Erin declined. Traditionally, beef Wellington is made using a single whole log of tenderloin, baked in pastry, then sliced up to serve. But Erin had used multiple individual steaks, as she couldn't find a single cut large enough for the traditional method. She then served up the individually cased portions of beef Wellington that resembled pasties, with mashed potato and green beans. Grey plates for her guests, while her meal was on an orange rust-coloured plate. The group sat down at the dining table, said grace, then ate the meal. Heather, Ian and Don all finished eating their beef Wellingtons, while Gail and Erin didn't. They then all shared some dessert, a fruit platter that Heather brought, and an orange cake that Gail brought. Afterwards, Erin finally revealed the reason why she had gathered them all in her home. She told her guests that she had been diagnosed with ovarian cancer. She said she wasn't sure how to break the news to her kids and asked for advice. Don suggested honesty. The group expressed their sympathy, and Ian led the family in prayer. The guests were still there when Erin's children came home later that afternoon. None of the guests suspected anything was amiss. That same day, Ian and Heather told friends from church how delicious and beautiful the beef Wellington had been. But late that night, all 4 lunch guests fell violently ill with what they thought was bad food poisoning. Don and Gail Patterson called an ambulance and were taken to Coorumburra Hospital. They were then transferred to Dandenong Hospital in Melbourne for more intensive care. While his parents were in hospital, Simon Patterson became concerned for his aunt and uncle. Early the next morning, he picked up the Wilkinsons from their home and drove them to Leongatha Hospital. On the way, Heather mentioned twice that Erin had served herself on a different coloured plate from everyone else. At the hospital, they explained to staff that they had eaten the same meal as Don and Gail Patterson. Simon called Erin to let her know that his parents and aunt and uncle were in hospital. Erin said she was also experiencing diarrhea. Later that day, Erin drove her son to the town of Taiab 90 minutes away for a flying lesson, but it ended up getting cancelled just before they arrived due to poor weather. On the way back, she stopped at a service station where CCTV footage showed her entering the bathroom and exiting 9 seconds later. She bought some food, then left. On the 31st of July, 2 days after the lunch, Erin walked into Leongatha Hospital saying she had gastro-like symptoms. Earlier that morning, Dr. Chris Webster had received confirmation from Dandenong Hospital that Don and Gail Patterson were suffering from mushroom poisoning, and he was readying the Wilkinsons for transfer. The doctor was immediately concerned for Erin, even though she was clearly not as sick as her lunch guests. Erin was seated near Ian and Heather, but didn't approach them or ask about their condition. She showed no emotion. Dr. Webster questioned Erin about the beef Wellington lunch she had cooked, and when he asked her where she'd sourced the mushrooms, Erin replied, Woolworths, which is a major supermarket chain here in Australia. Erin had only been at the hospital for around 5 minutes when she was told that she may have consumed death cap mushrooms and needed urgent medical attention. But instead of letting the doctors treat her, she got up and walked out. She told the hospital staff that she had to go home to pack her daughter's ballet bag. CCTV footage shows Dr. Veronica Foote trying to stop her, but after signing a discharge form, she is seen leaving the hospital. Staff was stunned. Dr. Webster tried calling Erin 3 times after she left, eventually leaving a voicemail saying he'd have to contact the police for her safety. He then called 000, asking police to perform a welfare check at Erin's home and to bring her back to the hospital. This call would mark the first time authorities would hear about the fatal lunch.
This is Dr. Chris Webster calling from Leongatha Hospital, and I have a concern regarding a patient that presented here earlier but has left the building and is potentially exposed to a fatal toxin from mushroom poisoning, and I've tried several times to get hold of her on her mobile phone.
When did she present at hospital?
At 8:05.
Today?
Yeah.
Mushroom poisoning, you said?
Yeah, so there were 5 people that ate a meal on Saturday, and 2 of them are in intensive care at Dandenong Hospital. 2 have just been transferred from Leongatha Hospital to Dandenong Hospital, and Erin presented this morning with symptoms of poisoning.
And what happened when she presented? She just got up and left?
No, there was time for the nurse to begin observations, and I was managing the other critically unwell patient, so I had a brief chat to her about where the mushrooms were obtained. After that, while I was attending the other patients, the nurse informed me that she had discharged herself against medical advice. She was only here for 5 minutes.
But 90 minutes later, Erin returned to the hospital. Doctors once again pressed her about where she got the mushrooms from, as this was now potentially a public health concern. Erin had a different answer this time. She said she had bought some dried mushrooms from an Asian grocer, possibly in the southeast Melbourne suburbs of Oakley or Glen Waverley. She couldn't remember exactly where. Hospital staff also asked if her children had eaten the leftovers. Erin said they had, but she had scraped off the pastry and mushrooms before serving it to them. She didn't seem concerned that they may have also been exposed to lethal mushrooms and didn't want to remove them from school and stress them out. Dr. Webster was stern and told her, quote, "They can be scared and alive or dead." Erin's husband Simon was sent to pick the children up from school. During this time, police called Dr. Webster back from Erin's house and informed him that no one was home. Dr. Webster asked the police to collect any beef Wellington leftovers. Erin said they'd be in a brown paper Woolworths bag, and sure enough, the officers found the bag at the bottom of her outdoor bin and brought it into the hospital. Lab tests would later confirm that the beef Wellington leftovers contained traces of toxins found in death cap mushrooms. When police asked Erin why she had gone home, she said she needed to go take care of her animals. Later on the phone to Simon, she said she went home to lay down on the floor and fell asleep. Erin and her 2 kids were taken to Monash Medical Centre in Melbourne. During the trip, medical staff noted that Erin was calm and chatty. Although Erin said she was suffering from gastro symptoms, tests showed that she did not have any serious illness and her condition was normal. Neither of the kids showed any signs of illness. None of them were treated with activated charcoal like the other lunch guests had been. Multiple health officials interviewed Erin about where she got the mushrooms from. She once again told them that she purchased dried mushrooms in a sealed packet from an Asian grocer in Oakley or Glen Waverley. She never once mentioned her mushroom foraging hobby. In fact, when Department of Health official Professor Rhonda Stewart outright asked if she had been mushrooming, Erin answered no. On the 1st of August 2023, Erin and her kids were cleared by the hospital to go home. Meanwhile, Don, Gail, Ian and Heather were all on life support, in an advanced state of multiple organ failure. Health authorities were scrambling to find the source of the poisonous mushrooms. Dozens of Asian grocers across Melbourne's southeast were searched. Only one was selling mushrooms that had been repackaged, but no supplier changes or non-commercially grown mushrooms were discovered. On the 2nd of August, CCTV footage from Coonawarra transfer station and landfill captured Erin carrying her food dehydrator into a large green shed for disposal. 2 days later, police found the dehydrator at the tip. Erin's fingerprints and traces of death cap toxins would later be detected on it. On the 4th of August, Gail Patterson and Heather Wilkinson died in hospital. Don Patterson died the next day. Hundreds attended the memorial services, which highlighted their generosity, lifelong contributions to the community, and the positive impact they had on so many lives. Ian Wilkinson remained in intensive care until the 21st of August, before being moved to the rehabilitation ward, eventually returning home in mid-September. By now, suspicion had fallen squarely on Erin Patterson, and on the 5th of August, homicide detectives executed a search warrant of her Leongatha home. She was cooperative and helped show them around, even pointing out a fruit platter that Heather Wilkinson had brought to the lunch. During the 4-hour search, police seized phones, a tablet, computers, and SIM cards. They would pull a trove of digital evidence including CCTV footage, bank records, purchases made with a Woolworths rewards card, web browser history, medical records, and messages to friends and family. They also found the Recipe Tin Eats cookbook. The beef Wellington pages were spattered with food. Investigators believe that Erin had been using multiple phones in the months leading up to the beef Wellington lunch. The first, referred to as Phone A, was a Samsung with a pink case seen in CCTV footage at the hospital. Investigators believed this was Erin's usual phone, but it was not found and has never been recovered. The second one, Phone B, was a Samsung in an orange case that Erin handed over to the police during the search. Police believed this was a dummy phone. The third phone was a Nokia. The SIM card from Phone A had been swapped into the Nokia shortly before the police arrived. Phone B was manually factory reset 3 times that day, then reset again remotely later in the night after it was in police possession.
Thanks for your patience today, Erin. We're completing our search. The only outstanding item is that mobile phone that you've got there. So I'll seize that now from you. Can I just have a look at it before we take it out?
Of course.
Yeah. Thank you. There's a provision in the warrant that requires you to assist us to get into these devices. Is there a PIN code on your phone?
Yeah.
Do you know what it is?
It's either. I can't remember which one. Is it opening? Oh, okay. Well,
Don't know one,
no one. So there you
Okay,
go. Your job's easy.
Yeah.
After the search of her house, Erin was interviewed at Wonthaggi Police Station. She remained calm and composed throughout the 20-minute conversation.
Now, I'll just confirm with you that you've had an opportunity to speak to a solicitor before this interview commenced. Okay, and you're happy with that?
Yeah.
Detectives asked about a manual for a Sunbeam food dehydrator they had found at her house.
Kitchen, far left bottom drawer, instruction manual for a Sunbeam food lab electronic dehydrator. What's that in relation to? Do you know anything about a dehydrator in your house? Or? Okay. Do you own a dehydrator?
No.
Okay.
I've got manuals of lots of stuff I've collected over the years. I've had all sorts of appliances and I just keep them all in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
When did you own a dehydrator?
I don't know, I might have had one years ago.
Okay.
At a different point in the interview, she was asked directly about mushroom foraging.
Obviously, we've got concerns in relation to these mushrooms and where they've come from. Okay. Is that something you've done in the past, foraging for mushrooms or anything like that? Never.
Never.
Right. Do you preserve foods or anything like that?
No.
Have you ever dehydrated food or anything like that? Okay.
When asked why she'd invited her in-laws to the lunch, Erin said,
I love them a lot. They've always been really good to me. And they always said to me that they would support me with love and emotional support, even though Simon and I were separated, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
Because my parents are both gone.
Yeah.
My grandparents are all gone. They're the only family that I've got.
Yeah.
And they're the only grandparents that my children have. And I want them to stay in my kids' life.
Yeah.
And that's really important to me. And I think Simon hated that I still had a relationship with his parents. But I love them.
Yeah.
Nothing that's ever happened between us, nothing he's ever done to me will change the fact that they're good, decent people that have never done anything wrong by me, ever.
By now, a media storm had descended, and Erin Patterson was the centre of it. The story of the seemingly ordinary mother of two from regional Victoria, suspected of poisoning her in-laws with death cap mushrooms, would become one of the biggest crime stories in our nation's history. Was it a terrible accident, or did she do it on purpose? On the 7th of August, the world finally met Erin when a Channel 9 reporter caught her at the carport in front of her home, where she would give what would be her only interview to the media.
It's a tragedy what's happened.
Can you tell us about the meal that you cooked?
I'm so devastated by what's happened, by the loss of Don is still in hospital, the loss of Ian and Heather and Gail, who were some of the best people that I've ever met. Gail was like...
Take your time.
Gail was the mum that I didn't have because my mum passed away 4 years ago. And Gail's never been anything but good and kind to me. And Ian and Heather were some of the best people I've ever met. They never did anything wrong to me, and I'm so devastated about what's happened.
Can you tell us
and
a
the
bit...
loss to the community, and to the families, and to my own children who've lost their grandmother.
Can you tell us a bit more about the lunch?
What I can tell you is that I just can't fathom what has happened. I just can't fathom what has happened. That Ian and Heather have lost their lives, and Gail has lost her life, and Donna's still in hospital, and I pray that he pulls through, because my children love him.
And you must be pretty shaken up by this as well.
I'm devastated. I love them. And I can't believe that this has happened, and I'm so sorry that they have lost their lives.
How are you kids?
I just can't believe it. Just can't believe it.
Can you tell us where the mushrooms came from? Were they picked from the property area?
I just ask you to leave me alone now, please.
Police say you're a suspect. Do you have anything to say about
Yes,
that?
I say I didn't do anything. I love them. And I'm devastated that they're gone. And I hope with every fibre of my being that Don pulls through. That's
Where
what I
did the
have to
mushrooms
say.
come from? Were they picked by you, or where did they come from, Erin? Can you tell us? What meal did you cook them? Did you eat the same meal, Erin?
The footage was widely dissected by the public, by armchair detectives, and body language experts, with most commentators pointing out the absence of real tears, as well as her mix-up with who had died and who was still in hospital. Another video was captured where she was much less welcoming to the media.
And I'm grieving too, and you guys don't have any respect for that.
We do. We just need to try to
Can I get
understand more.
to my
Absolutely, you can. We just need to understand more what took place. What served on that day.
Erin, we just want to know what you told the police.
Have you had any further contact today?
You don't have any permission to be on my private property or to harass me. This kind of behaviour will send someone to drive off a bridge.
Not speaking, not speaking. We just,
Well, that's what you seem to be doing.
you spoke yesterday about your relationship. Can you tell us if you have any further update today how Ian's going?
Erin, how are you going? Are you okay?
I'm going for asking, and you guys aren't helping.
Neither of these videos were brought up or shown in the ensuing trial. On November 2nd, 2023, police arrested Erin Patterson at her home in Leongatha on 3 counts of murder and 5 counts of attempted murder. 3 of the attempted murder charges related to separate incidents in which Simon Patterson suffered severe unexplained illnesses between November 2021 and September 2022, but these charges would later be dropped. Intense public interest continued to surround the case. 6 weeks after her arrest, Erin sold one of her properties for $1.025 million to pay for one of Melbourne's top criminal law firms. Just before the trial began, a mortgage was also taken out against her Leongatha forever home, valued at around $1.175 million, to cover future legal fees, which is a standard move in cases involving long, high-cost trials. Erin was held at the Dame Phyllis Frost Centre, a women's prison in Melbourne's west. She was placed in the high security wing for her own protection, where she spent most of her days going over the 50,000 pages of evidence that formed the case against her. Reports came out about how she complained frequently about her cell conditions and how she was the target of taunts and heckling from other inmates. Unsubstantiated rumours swirled about how she attempted to tamper with another inmate's food. On the 19th of April 2025, Erin Patterson's trial began at the Latrobe Valley Courts in the regional town of Morwell. She was now 50 years old, facing 3 counts of murder and 1 of attempted murder. She pleaded not guilty to all charges. Neither the prosecution nor the defense wanted manslaughter considered as an alternative charge. Both sides agreed it would be too confusing for the jury. From day one, this became Australia's trial of the century. Every Monday morning, Erin was transported in a prison van on a 2.5-hour journey from Melbourne to the police cells next door to the Morwell court, where she would spend the week before being returned to the prison on Friday afternoon. The trial ran for a total of 10 weeks. Throughout the proceedings, she repeatedly complained about the cold conditions in the Morwell holding cells and was denied continuous access to a laptop and writing materials to prepare her defense. Inside the courtroom, Erin remained mostly stoic as she sat in the dock each day. It was reported that her only supporter who showed up was an online friend. Her own sister did not attend the trial. No non-family member friends from Leongatha or Korumburra were called to testify on her behalf. Cameras weren't allowed inside the courtroom, so no photos of Erin were taken during the proceedings. Outside the courtroom, more than 50 media crews from around the world descended on the small town. One even built a stage. Every tiny detail the jury heard was relayed almost instantly to a transfixed public. Live blogs delivered minute-by-minute updates, while daily podcasts broke down each day of the trial. A long list of witnesses took the stand to give evidence, many of them with direct links to the events before, during, and after the lunch. Simon Patterson, Erin's estranged husband, the father of her children and son and nephew of the alleged victims. Ian Wilkinson, the pastor who survived the meal Erin allegedly cooked with lethal intent. Erin's Facebook group chat friends who had previously heard her vent her frustrations about Simon and his parents. Erin's 2 children, whose pre-recorded police interviews from the 16th of August 2023 were played in court. They did not appear in person at any point of the trial. Members of the wider Patterson family, the doctors and health officials who treated and interviewed Erin and the other guests, mushroom experts and forensic investigators, and several other people who had interacted with Erin in the days leading up to and following the deadly lunch. The most unexpected witness was Erin Patterson herself. Many didn't think she would take the stand. In the court of public opinion, Erin was already seen as an unreliable narrator who couldn't keep her story straight. But she chose to give evidence, and it's her words that we will focus on in the next part of the video. Erin Patterson's main defense argument was that she never intended to hurt anyone, and the deaths of Don, Gail, and Heather were the result of a terrible accident. Her defense team argued that Erin's actions following the lunch, her lies and cover-up, were not a part of a calculated murder plot, but driven by a combination of panic, embarrassment, and shame. On her in-laws, in the witness box, Erin said she was ashamed of the angry messages she'd sent her Facebook group chat where she vented about Simon and his parents. She told the jury those were just moments of frustration, shared in private with friends who she knew would take her side. She insisted that she loved her parents-in-law and believed they had always loved her back. She said her relationship with them, while complicated at times, was ultimately warm and caring. As for why she invited Ian and Heather Wilkinson to the lunch, she said it was simply because she saw them often at church and wanted to build a closer relationship with them. On the mushrooms in Beef Wellington, Erin told the court she had always enjoyed bushwalking and camping and had an interest in mushrooms. That interest deepened during Victoria's COVID lockdowns in 2020, where she and her kids would take walks near their home. She began to notice wild mushrooms and started researching them. She joined Facebook groups for mushroom enthusiasts and over time gained enough confidence to start picking wild mushrooms on her property and cooking and eating them. When it came to the Beef Wellington, she admitted that she believed the death cap mushrooms must have gotten into the food, but she denied deliberately seeking them out and cooking them. She said the majority of the mushrooms she used in the Wellington were from Woolworths, and that she also added dried mushrooms from a wild mushroom mix purchased from an Asian grocery store somewhere in Melbourne's southeast in April 2023. She couldn't recall the store's name or location. She said that the dried mushrooms smelled, quote, very pungent, so she put them in a container and stored them in her pantry. She explained that while she was making the mushroom paste for the Wellington, she tasted the mixture and felt it was too bland, so she decided to add some of the dried mushrooms in her pantry she had bought from the Asian grocer. She said that looking back, she now believed that forage mushrooms, including death caps she hadn't recognized correctly, might have been accidentally stored in the same container as the dried mushrooms. She denied ever deliberately serving her guests grey-coloured plates while serving herself an orange one. According to Erin, she had plates of various colours in her kitchen and didn't give any thought to who got what. On her cancer, Erin admitted that she lied about having ovarian cancer. She explained that she had struggled with body image issues since childhood. She said that as a child, her mother used to weigh her and her sister weekly, which led to disordered eating and long-term issues with low self-esteem. After a lifelong struggle with her weight and trying, quote, every diet under the sun, she decided to get gastric bypass surgery. However, she was embarrassed about it. She didn't want anyone to know she was getting weight loss surgery. She told the jury that she had a pre-surgery appointment for a gastric bypass booked in for September 2023 at the Erins clinic in Melbourne. I was planning to have gastric bypass surgery, so I remembered thinking I did not want to tell anybody what I was going to have done. I was really embarrassed about it, so I thought perhaps letting them believe I had some serious issue that needed treatment meant maybe they'd help me with the kids. So she lied and told Don, Gail, Ian and Heather that she had ovarian cancer. The fake cancer would explain the hospital trips she'd need for her secret weight loss surgery. She admitted to the court that she enjoyed the sympathy and attention she got after she said she had cancer. After her guests left, Erin said she binge ate several more pieces of the orange cake that Gail had brought, then felt sick and went to the toilet to vomit it out. Her legal team argued that this vomiting was why she did not get as sick as her guests. This brings us to, was she really sick? Erin insisted that she did get sick after the lunch, developing diarrhea around midnight with abdominal cramps and nausea. She said she was going to the toilet every 20 minutes. Despite being unwell, she still drove her son with her daughter in the car too to his flying lesson the next day, a 180-kilometer round trip. She said that he'd had several previous lessons cancelled and didn't want to disappoint him. During the car trip, she said she had to pull over and, there's no delicate way to say this, defecate behind a bush. She cleaned herself up with some tissues and put them in a doggy bag. The flying lesson ended up getting cancelled, so Erin turned the car around and then later she stopped at a petrol station to dispose of the bag in the bathroom bin. When they got home, Erin fed her children leftovers from the lunch, eye-fillet steak with mashed potatoes and green beans, while she made herself a bowl of cereal. On the dehydrator and phones. After Erin and the kids were discharged from the hospital, she said that during a private moment with Simon, he accused her of poisoning his parents with her food dehydrator. She said that was what made her freak out and spiral into panic. She began to wonder whether she really had made a terrible mistake. Had she unknowingly foraged death caps, dried them, and mixed them in with her store-bought mushrooms? At that point, health officials, including child protection authorities, were aware of the case. Erin said she was terrified that her children might be taken away from her if she were to be blamed for the mushroom poisoning, so she frantically decided to dispose of the dehydrator at the local tip and perform multiple factory resets on her phone. She said that she was scared police would find the photos she'd taken of mushrooms in the dehydrator. She also admitted that when she got home after being interviewed on August 5th, she was curious whether police had, quote, been silly enough to leave the phone connected to Wi-Fi, so she hit reset again. Although Erin's body language and demeanor in the witness box wasn't technically evidence for the jury to consider, I think it's worth us mentioning. It was widely reported that Erin was quite flat when she spoke, with her own lawyer saying she was not trying to, quote, charm the jury. She tilted her head down and blinked rapidly when she was cross-examined by the prosecution. Erin was also pedantic, frequently stopping the prosecutor mid-sentence to correct and clarify minor details. Was she being overly defensive or just trying to be precise? There were some moments of emotion when she was seen dabbing her eyes with tissues, watching the pre-recorded police interviews of her children, and when she spoke about how much she loved her in-laws. The risk of taking the stand in a murder trial is always high, so did the defense team's gamble pay off? Erin talking about her deeply personal struggles, insecurities, shame and embarrassment. Was this vulnerability just a calculated attempt at winning the jury's sympathy, or was she being genuinely transparent and honest? Was it enough to explain her lies and cover-ups? Let's examine how her story held up against the prosecution's case. While the defense painted a picture of shame and panic, the prosecution's case was all about precision and planning. Led by seasoned Crown prosecutor Dr. Nanette Rogers, the prosecution argued that what happened on the 29th of July 2023 was no accident, but a deliberate, premeditated murder. They argued that there were 4 key calculated deceptions at the heart of the case that prove this. Deception number 1 was the fake cancer diagnosis. The prosecution argued that Erin came up with the fake cancer to create a plausible reason for the lunch and had planted the seed of her health issues as early as May 2023, when her internet browser history showed searches for stage 4 ovarian cancer, suggesting she did research to make the lie more convincing. On the 28th of June 2023, Gail texted Erin asking about a medical appointment. "Hi Erin, just wondering how you got on at your appointment today. Love, Gail and Don. The appointment went okay. I had a needle biopsy of the lump and I'm returning for an MRI next week. We'll know more after that." Erin wouldn't extend the invitation to lunch until the 16th of July. Of course, she admitted the cancer lie to the jury, saying she wanted to hide her upcoming weight loss surgery, but the prosecution argued that there was never any weight loss surgery either. It was pointed out that the Enrich clinic in Melbourne, where Erin claimed in her testimony she had a pre-surgery appointment for a gastric bypass, does not offer that type of surgery. When questioned about this, Erin said she had simply mixed up the details, that it was an honest mistake, and what she actually meant was that she had been planning to get liposuction. However, medical records obtained from the period between January 2020 and August 2023 showed no evidence that Erin had ever sought information about, been assessed for, or referred for gastric bypass surgery, weight loss treatment, or any related procedure. The prosecution suggested that Erin planned to tell her victims the cancer story because in the end it wouldn't matter. They would take the lie to their graves. Deception 2 was the poisonous mushrooms. The prosecution argued that Erin deliberately sourced, prepared, and hid poisonous death cap mushrooms in individual portions of beef Wellington. She chose beef Wellington for the meal because not only is it a special occasion meal, it also always happens to involve a mushroom paste. But Erin deviated significantly from the traditional recipe. Instead of cooking a single large Wellington, which is how the recipe is designed, she made individual parcels, allowing her to isolate the poisoned portions from the safe ones she intended for herself. Erin claimed she couldn't find a large enough piece of tenderloin in Woolworths to make beef Wellington the traditional way, but there was a butcher right across the road where she could have shopped. Ian Wilkinson had said that he and the other guests were served their meal on grey plates, while Erin ate off an orange plate so she could keep track of which one was not poisoned. Simon said that Heather also remarked twice about the plate colours when he took the Wilkinsons to the hospital. Erin then ensured that her children were out of the house for the lunch, so there was no risk of them eating the poisoned food. It was argued that Erin picking the death cap mushrooms was not an accident and not a case of mistaken identity either. As early as May 2022, she had shown an interest in the poisonous mushrooms, as her internet history showed she had navigated to a map of death cap mushroom locations on the website iNaturalist. She didn't browse the website for any listings of other kinds of mushrooms. In April to May 2023, death cap sightings in the nearby towns of Lock and Outram were posted on the website. Phone tower data placed Erin in the vicinity of those towns in that time frame. At the same time, she purchased the food dehydrator, which she used to dry and powder mushrooms. Death cap toxins were later found in the trashed food dehydrator. Literal photos of death cap mushrooms on a scale were taken from Erin's tablet. They were shown to several mushroom experts during the trial and confirmed to be death caps. During cross-examination, prosecutor Dr. Rogers asked, "I suggest that you were weighing these mushrooms, these death cap mushrooms, so you could calculate the weight required for administration of a fatal dose for one person. Agree or disagree?" Disagree. "And the weight required for 5 fatal doses for 5 people, agree or disagree?" Disagree. Then there was the story about where she supposedly bought the mushrooms. Erin told different health officials she got a bag of dried mushrooms from an Asian grocer in Melbourne's southeast, but she couldn't name the suburb, the street, or the store. This was despite growing up in that very part of Melbourne and owning property there. And even with her family members fighting for their lives in the ICU, she still couldn't or wouldn't make a serious effort to remember. Her description of these dried mushrooms also kept changing. She initially said the mushrooms came in a small sandwich-sized bag that didn't appear professionally packed and wasn't resealable. Later, she claimed it was resealable. Health officials were interviewing Erin in person and via phone and text during those crucial couple of days because it was a potential public health crisis. But nobody else in the area got sick from mushroom poisoning because no stores had actually mistakenly sold death caps. The prosecution brought in experts to further shut down Erin's story. Firstly, the forensic toxicologist confirmed that tests of the beef Wellington leftovers returned positive results for death cap mushroom toxins. Mycologist Dr. Tom May testified that death cap mushrooms don't grow in China, and there was no realistic chance they could have ended up in a bag of dried mushrooms commercially imported by an Asian grocer. He also told the jury that he dried death cap mushrooms himself and described that they had a distinct unpleasant smell that could not be ignored. Mycologist Dr. Camille Trung testified that death cap mushrooms only grow in the wild, and it would be highly unlikely, if not impossible, for them to be sold even accidentally in a grocery store. She had also examined the beef Wellington leftovers herself and couldn't detect any visible pieces of death cap mushroom or its strong odor, suggesting that the mushrooms had been deliberately concealed by dehydrating and powdering them. The prosecution then argued that Erin wasn't even the avid mushroom forager she claimed to be. Her her own children had told police that they had no idea that their mother picked mushrooms and that they had never gone mushroom foraging with her. Out of the 400 books in Erin's home, not one was about mushrooms. She had exaggerated her interest in the hobby in an attempt to establish that she had made an honest mistake. Deception 3 was the faking of mushroom poisoning symptoms. Next, the prosecution broke down how Erin had faked her illness the day after the lunch to make it look like she had also been accidentally poisoned by the meal she served. From the very beginning, Erin gave conflicting accounts about when her symptoms began. She told Simon that she started to feel unwell around 4 p.m. on the day of the lunch, but when she spoke to a doctor later, she shifted the timeline, saying her diarrhea started around midnight. Then there was her odd behavior at the hospital. When doctors told her she may have ingested death cap mushrooms, she went against their advice and tried to leave rather than get urgent medical attention. She disappeared for 90 minutes, giving conflicting accounts of where she went. The prosecution said that she had been shocked that the hospital figured out so quickly what kind of poisoning was involved, and that she needed a moment alone to come up with the Asian grocer story. Erin had told the court that she had explosive diarrhea the day after the lunch, but that same afternoon she drove nearly 3 hours for her son's flying lesson, in white pants no less. Here's how prosecutor Nanette Rogers put it. You might think that a person who genuinely feared pooping her pants would not have taken such a risk by driving such a distance. She even stopped on the way home to pick up takeaway for her son at Subway. CCTV footage from a petrol station showed Erin stop there during the trip, stroll into the bathroom, then exit just 9 seconds later. Obviously not enough time for a toilet emergency. She then leisurely browsed the shop before she purchased some food. In Erin's son's evidence, he talked about that car trip, but did not mention anything about his mother needing to pull over to relieve herself behind some bushes, which is definitely something he would have remembered. What he did recall was seeing his mother drinking her usual morning coffee at home, then a second coffee later during the drive. Coffee on an upset stomach, not adding up. The final point to prove that Erin had faked her poisoning. She had told the court that she had binged on cake then vomited after the lunch, which could potentially explain why she didn't get as sick as the others. But not once did she tell any doctor or nurse at either hospital about the vomiting. Her test results then found her condition was normal. The fourth deception was the sustained cover-ups. Erin's myriad of lies, conflicting accounts, and poorly remembered details were not because she was panicked or confused after learning she might have accidentally poisoned her relatives. The prosecution argued that it was a deliberate strategy to avoid suspicion. First, the leftovers that Erin said she fed her kids. This was for dinner on Sunday night, the day after the lunch, after Simon had called Erin and told her that Don, Gail, Ian, and Heather were all seriously ill. Both kids remember eating a particularly delicious piece of steak with mashed potatoes and green beans that night. Erin said it was the beef Wellington leftovers and that she'd scraped off the pastry and mushrooms. This is what she told hospital staff. But if Erin knew that the beef Wellingtons she cooked had made her lunch guests severely ill, why on earth would she risk feeding the same thing to her kids? The prosecution said that Erin had cooked up the remaining individual steaks fresh for her kids and they were not leftover beef Wellingtons at all. When police searched Erin's home, they found a beef Wellington in the bin. The prosecution said this was the poisoned portion Erin had intended for Simon, who pulled out of the lunch last minute. The prosecution argued that the lie about feeding her kids leftover beef Wellington was an attempt to make herself look innocent. In prosecutor Nanette Rogers' words, people would more readily believe this was all a shocking accident if she'd fed it to her beloved children. This was a lie to help cover her tracks. But in reality, Erin knew which beef Wellingtons were poisoned, and she knew she had not fed her kids poisoned food. That's why she was so hesitant about bringing them to hospital. Next in Erin's sustained cover-ups was the food dehydrator. Not only did it have her fingerprints on it, but forensic testing confirmed it contained traces of death cap mushroom toxins. Photos from Erin's phone showed she had dried mushrooms with it. Text messages showed that she had hidden powdered mushrooms in her kids' food. She dumped the dehydrator at the tip because she knew it would connect her to the poison she had deliberately made and hidden in the beef Wellingtons. And finally, the mobile phones. Her main phone that she was seen using in hospital CCTV footage was never found. One of the phones she did hand over to police had been factory reset 4 times on the day of the police search. What other reason would she have for erasing her digital footprint other than to get rid of incriminating photos and other evidence? After a 10-week marathon trial, 50 witnesses, 50,000 pages of evidence, 330 pages of the judge's summary, and one of the most sensational and talked about court cases Australia has ever seen, the moment finally arrived. The jury had been deliberating for 6.5 days. Then, on the afternoon of July 7th, 2025, word came in that a verdict had been reached. Inside the courtroom, Erin Patterson sat flanked by 2 security guards as she waited to hear her fate. Her eyes were closed as she took deep, steady breaths. When the verdicts were read out, Erin was completely still and expressionless. There were no tears or any visible reaction at all, as she was found guilty of the murder of Don Patterson, Gail Patterson, and Heather Wilkinson, and guilty of the attempted murder of Ian Wilkinson. Her defense team exchanged defeated looks. As of this video's upload in August 2025, Erin Patterson has not yet been sentenced. In the middle of making this video, on the 8th of August, a media suppression order was lifted, which meant that materials and details the jury were not allowed to hear were finally made public. The most damning revelation from the pre-trial hearings was that Simon Patterson had long suspected Erin of trying to poison him. He and police alleged that she'd made multiple attempts in 2021 and 2022. Those allegations formed the basis of 3 separate attempted murder charges that were dropped the day before the trial. According to the prosecution, these alleged poisoning attempts all happened when Erin and Simon went away together without their kids. Simon told the court he became violently ill 3 times after eating meals Erin had prepared, beginning with a Tupperware container of penne pasta in November 2021. The worst episode was in May 2022 during a camping trip. Erin had prepared a chicken curry for her and Simon to eat. Afterwards, Simon became so sick that he ended up in a coma for weeks and had to have part of his bowel removed. Then in September 2022, Simon once again became severely ill after eating a veggie wrap that Erin had made him while they were on holidays together. He passed out and experienced slurred speech and seizures. These incidents all happened before Simon had listed himself as single on his tax paperwork and before they started fighting about child support. An intensive care specialist who reviews Simon's medical records concluded that one of these hospital admissions was consistent with barium carbonate poisoning, chemical most commonly used as rat poison. Police later found internet searches for barium carbonate on Erin's computer. Simon told the court that he had shared his concerns and suspicions about Erin with his wider family and his GP, Dr. Christopher Ford, who agreed it was feasible that he had been poisoned deliberately. However, Simon said he believed he was Erin's only target and that no one else was in danger, which is why he didn't warn his parents or the Wilkinsons before they agreed to attend the Beef Wellington lunch. As we know, Simon had pulled out of the lunch the day before. He told the pre-trial, "I thought there'd be a risk that she'd poison me if I attended." The morning after the lunch, Simon told Dr. Ford that Erin's guests had fallen ill and that he believed they'd been poisoned. Dr. Ford went to the hospital to visit Don and Gail, where Don was holding a jar of his own vomit, keeping it in case it could be used as evidence. Another finding that was ruled inadmissible at the trial was a post that Erin had made in a Facebook group called Poison Help, Emergency Identification for Mushrooms and Plants, back in 2020. She wrote, "My cat chewed on this mushroom just now. He is having a vomit. Was in grassland near trees. I'm in Victoria, Australia." The prosecutor pointed out, quote, "The accused has never owned a cat." In the aftermath of the trial, Australians did what we do best and made jokes about the whole thing. Group chats joked about recreating the lunch, memes flew around social media, countless opinion pieces were published, Reddit threads speculated about Erin's psychology, because there was still one glaring unanswered question. Why did she do it? Under Victorian law, the prosecution wasn't required to prove her motive, just intent beyond a reasonable doubt, and they did that. But still, there had to be a reason. Erin's group chat messages revealed deep-rooted frustration and resentment towards her husband and his family, but those feelings are hardly unique. Plenty of couples fight about child support and clash with their in-laws, and Erin's in-laws, by all accounts, were nice people. Money didn't seem to be a motive here either, with Erin's multi-million-dollar property portfolio. And why did she even target the Wilkinsons? They hardly even knew each other. Was it some kind of twisted power move? An attempt at putting her true crime knowledge to the test to outsmart police and see if she could get away with murder at the cost of taking away her children's loving grandparents? After the trial, Ian Wilkinson returned to the Corumbara Baptist Church, giving sermons as usual. He welcomed the influx of new faces, but didn't mention the trial. A surge of true crime tourists forced both Simon and Ian to put up signs on their front doors, warning people not to trespass. Erin's leongatha house was wrapped in black plastic sheeting as a privacy screen. Prosecutors barred the house from being sold, so it may be used in future compensation claims. Nagi Mayahashi, author of the Beef Wellington recipe, said she was devastated her work was tangled in the tragedy and asked for privacy. Books are being written, a TV drama based on the case is being developed. In the end, 2 children lost their grandparents. Simon lost both his parents and his aunt. Ian lost his wife of 39 years. And a tight-knit community lost 3 of its most generous and beloved pillars. And we may never truly understand why.